That's it.
I'll call the May 14th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Gray?
Here.
Tupin?
Here. Yes, here.
Eckelstell? Boise?
Here.
Conley?
Here.
Di Benedetto?
Here.
Bloomer?
Here.
Do we need microphones at this end of the table?
Okay, we've also received the minutes of our April 23rd meeting. Before I ask for a motion to approve, is there any additions, corrections that need to be made?
No. It looks good to me.
Okay, I've seen Chelsea nod, so I need a motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd. Okay.
I
Moved by
second.
Susan, second by Sandy. Roll call, please.
Gray?
Yep.
Tupin?
Yes.
Eckelstell?
Yes.
Boise?
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
Di Benedetto?
Yes.
Bloomer?
Yes. Okay, communications from the board and the council, Urban Renewal Agency, Jeff?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming special meeting for urban renewal the week of May 27th. Kind of quickly go through the schedule. The folks from Kansas State University will be here to do a field review for the urban renewal area. They arrive on Tuesday, May 27th, and then Wednesday, there's a full day of meetings and tour of the urban renewal area. And then at 6 p.m., there's going to be a community input meeting to solicit input from the community on a vision and preferences for the rural urban renewal district, and that's going to be at the Roosevelt Center. That happens to conflict with our planning board meeting that night, so I think that's something that's going to want to discuss. The Urban Renewal Agency feels it's pretty important that planning board attend that public listening session, and also that Greg and or Jeremy are also available for that meeting to kind of hear what the public has to say. So, and then on Thursday, there'll be more informal visits with business folks and others in the community at an informal coffee chat at the Cattail Bakery. And then from 2 to 3 p.m., they're going to meet with representatives or students from the high school and get input from them. And then another informal happy hour at Sam's Tap Room from 4 to 5:30. And then 6 p.m., the URA board is going to meet again, discuss the results of the week's public input meetings, and then they leave on Friday, May 30th. So I can kind of send this copy of this agenda to the planning board. And then I'll just kind of pass this around too. But anyway, I think we let's maybe discuss a little bit whether to postpone the planning board meeting on Wednesday, May 28th, or so folks can attend the public meeting.
Any thoughts on that?
Is there, so on Thursday, there are opportunities for input,
Informal ones, yeah.
and on Wednesday at 6, we're just there to listen?
What's that?
We're just there to listen?
Well, and provide input, I mean, as part of the community. But I think, to me, it seems like since decisions that the URA or projects that the URA is going to be reviewing in the future for potential projects ultimately will probably be coming before the planning board, so it's maybe just, I guess I just see it as an opportunity for the planning board just to hear what the public is saying about urban renewal area.
Marnie, do you have a thought on that?
I'm just taking this picture of this so I can put my input, my pre-designation input. I'm either way.
Is there some way that we can change our planning board meeting to Thursday night?
It conflicts my schedule for sure, but,
Because mine is flying out for graduation.
and I think that's a bad precedent. John, do you have an opinion?
I'd like to go to it.
Okay.
I have property there, so, you know, I have a stake in that.
In the urban renewal. All right, can we do this, Jeff? I don't want to cancel the May 28th meeting. However, I do think that one or two, or even three of us should be there. You for sure. John said he wants to go. Then we can still have a legitimate May 28th meeting with the five of us. The reason I'm thinking that is, number one, I feel confident that you would represent us well, and then report back to us. Number two, I think we're on a bit of a schedule here. Hopefully, we're gonna complete the downtown, the growth policy tonight. We're scheduled to get the draft of the master plan within the next 4 or 5 days to review on the 28th. If we postpone that, that puts us into the first week in June. And then we have a 15 or 30 day
15
day for a public notice on so that's pushing us into July. And I think there's some benefit of getting the growth policy and the master plan to the council, if not at the same time, pretty close. Was I not confident in your abilities, and John, and if anybody else wants to go, I may not say that, but I'd like to keep the meeting on the 28th. Chelsea, do you have an opinion on this?
I personally would like to go to the Urban Renewal District meeting. I'm also in the Urban Renewal District and also very curious to see what direction they're going. That being said, if you prefer I stay at the planning board meeting, I think that we do have good representation and I could go to some of those informal meetings as well.
So if we say you, John, and Jeff will go to that meeting, and then the five of us will meet.
The four of us.
4 of us will meet on the 28th to continue on. Does that work for everybody?
It works good for me.
Susan?
I'd like to go to the other meeting, but I think, like you
We need
said,
at least 4 here.
somebody at both places.
I'll go to the informal meeting the next day.
Yeah. And we don't have anything officially noticed for the 28th, do we? From the standpoint of any kind of thing where the public's been invited to come on the 28th?
Well, we'll have our normal notice that's out there that, you know, we're on the 28th and we're downtown master plan review. That goes out as the formal notice.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave?
I apologize, I'm not really here. I'm curious if I ask the question I hear you asking, or if I ask the question a little bit differently. How does the planning board feel, the rest of the planning board feel, or is having there be an additional 2-week delay an acceptable, because, so it's either, yes, we split it, and so there's half there and half there, which also means the public can only go to one or the other. Which is more important? Is it an acceptable?
First of all, I think the 2-week delay is minimal because we have some conditional use heading our way in June.
Okay, got
Okay, so I'd like to get this downtown master plan done before those conditional uses hit.
Right. And I think
I'm not exactly sure when that's gonna hit. We know one's coming sometime into May, first part of June. Right, Jared?
I think it's just that it's a, do we do, like I said, do a split meeting and make it work? Is that everybody's preference as opposed to risk dealing with with given delays? It's not a possible delay,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a delay.
It would be my preference to continue the planning board meeting on the 28th. And you won't be here, so,
I'll be here the 28th. I'm leaving the next day.
so you're good for the planning board?
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll shut up and hide behind my rock again.
So, are we okay with Chelsea, Jeff and John being our representations at this meeting at 6 PM on the 28th? And
Yeah.
the rest of us will be here?
I think that would be great.
Jeff?
Yeah, that would work for me. My only other question, I guess, would be whether Jeremy or Greg would be available to.
Can we split you guys? Is this virtual, this meeting on the public meeting is that virtual?
No, I don't believe it is.
Yeah, we can work it out, but I'm sure, I think Jeremy's available on the 28th. I can't remember off the top of my head.
But if he's not,
He might not be. I think he might have had a,
Dave, if Jeremy is not available, and the other part is he'd have to come from Helena, on the 28th, could you be, Greg, at our meeting here and
Could I be Greg? I can try.
let Greg go to the, meeting on the,
Can you trade me that?
does that work for you, Jeff?
Yeah, I think if one or the other could get that public meeting.
I'm just trying to figure out a way so we can do both.
Understood.
Because we've been at this a long time, I want to wrap it up.
Okay,
Huh?
one other little question, and I hate to ask because everything gets dumped on you in one way or another. But would there be any way for us to get an email from you with brief notes, like a paragraph or so, about what you did while we were somewhere else?
I could do a quick summary of.
Yeah, a summary of things that are pertinent to us, yeah.
That'd be real helpful.
The other thing, I guess, to point out is, for those that can't go to the public meeting, there's gonna be an opportunity, several opportunities the following day to meet one-on-one with the folks from Kansas State and,
See, and I can do some of that on the 29th, but not all of it.
And I can do some of that too.
Chelsea, you okay with all this? Okay. So, Jeff?
Yeah.
Jeremy? So, if it's only you'll go there, and Dave or I will be you here in terms of taking minutes and notes and all that kind of, and
Oh, between two of us.
It's
we can
recorded.
yeah,
It's recorded. I don't think
okay,
you
all right,
need to take
Yeah,
it.
and it's recorded, yeah.
Jeff? All right, we're good?
We're good.
Moving on, anything else on urban renewal?
that's it, that's the big activity.
Okay.
That is the big one.
See, I noticed on the invite, we weren't included on the invite with planning board.
right?
We were, it was assumed.
But it does say in here, city planning representative, so that's staff, I mean, you know.
Well, at our meetings, I was the one that
Well,
suggested planning board.
It didn't hurt my feelings.
You're the
right?
one who did that.
I
No,
noticed
I
that.
mean, I'm surprised it wasn't on, I guess it was just assumed that planning board.
He invited Tom Coots and the fire department, that was interesting. But, anyway, okay, moving on. City council, Chelsea, anything?
Yeah, so we have, a new city council member for Ward 1. We have Patty Davis, who has joined the team. So big congrats there, and thanks to everybody who applied, or tried to nominate themselves, or et cetera. So anyhow, that's good news. In terms of things that are going on with land use and planning, one thing that you guys can expect, so we did some approving for the planting of the live tree stand. There's gonna be a resolution coming for that. They'll be up at Van Dyke Park by the observatory. We do have the growth policy still in the forefront for land use and planning, for reviewing that for when it comes in. Couple of other things, we're gonna be reviewing, essentially creating a resolution or a process for changing the use of city-owned land. And so we've kind of started that discussion, but realistically, we don't see that happening until the fall. Other things that will affect planning board to a degree, there will be a vote going out to the public, specifically on marijuana businesses and disallowing cultivation. So that's gonna be a vote that goes to the public, because as of now, it is an approved business within the city limits. But that will affect how we look at zoning come this late summer. So I think those are some of the big ones. If I'm missing anything, I'm sure Dave will catch it in the mayor's comment.
Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
If the public approves, is the vote's gonna be for or against manufacturing and cultivation? Is that it?
Just cultivation.
Just cultivation?
Just cultivation, yep. So just
Okay,
grow
if-
ops, yep.
So if that's approved, then are we obligated to make zoning applicable to that?
From what I understand per MCA, yes, but we'll confirm that with Dennison.
That is my recollection of what Dennis is, if, unless it is excluded, we must provide zoning for it somehow.
So if this,
You
just to
know,
be clear, if the city votes that they want a cultivation marijuana within the city limits, we are going to have to adjust our zoning to accommodate that?
That is my understanding.
Holy crap.
And it may mean that it's restrictive. I mean, my bet would be is that there'd be a lot of guardrails and it'd be very limited on where that could actually be located, just per smells, per nuisance, per space. There's a lot of things that would go into play there, but I think for MCA, it would be required. But again, we'll confirm with Dennison and that vote will be going out.
Restrictive as you want it can be, but it cannot be so restrictive that there is no such as a thing as a place for it to be.
Right, right.
If you've done your research on the requirements for cultivation, it's not a simple lot.
Nope.
It's a pretty good sized lot.
I think,
Yeah, that's why we're moving to get that removed from our list.
Okay.
And the good news is that the current operators in town are who suggested it and are backing it, so I think as we go into that, it's
Suggesting and backing cultivation?
banning cultivation.
Oh, okay.
They are the ones who said, you want to get rid of this.
Okay.
So I don't think we have an opposition from within town anymore.
I'm just asking the question, that's all.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yep.
County, Marty?
So we meet next Tuesday, and on our, on the docket, we have 2 new subdivisions to discuss. High Ridge subdivision and Purgatory subdivision. And they are asking us to have a special meeting June 5th in Fromberg, I guess, to handle some more, subdivisions that are coming in. So that's all I have.
do you know about where those subdivisions are, what towns or general
They're
locations?
they're in town, they're in Red
Car-
Lodge, Carbon County.
In Red Lodge?
Yeah,
Wow,
near Red Lodge.
near Red
Yeah,
Lodge.
and I just didn't bring it with, I didn't bring my packet with me to tell you.
When you get a
Okay.
note as to exactly where they are, can you send it to us?
I sure can.
Thank you. Or send it to me. and
Inquiring minds.
Yes, I can, yeah, I have it
Send it
on
to
my
me and
desk.
I'll get it to everybody.
Okay,
Anything else?
that's it.
Yeah, Greg?
I know one of them's in Bear Crossing, or, it's called Bear Crossing, it's in Bear Creek,
Oh, Bear Creek.
because we're the engineer on it, so.
Okay.
A subdivision in Bear Creek.
It's in the old part of town that never got a filed plat.
Yeah.
So the lots are on the original town's plat, but it was never filed. It's a
Interesting.
weird case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mayor, anything from your office that? Okay.
No, I thank you all. Like I said, I understand and appreciate the desire to get these things done. And particularly acknowledging that there's some other stuff coming up that could impact it. So
Yeah.
thank you all for what you do.
Well, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be hurried to create crap. I want to do what we need to do to get it done right, but I don't want to have.
But if we don't
Manageable.
set an end, it could go on forever
Oh,
and
yeah,
never happen.
For sure, okay.
Yeah, I'm good with you.
I don't see any new business. We have some old business. Is there any public comment on any of our old business, namely the final draft of the growth policy? Or, discussion, any questions or discussion on the master plan? Anything on the public? Dave, online?
From here, nothing?
Judy.
I'm sorry, I was multitasking. Did I miss it?
We're looking for public comment.
There's no indication of public comments online.
Okay. All right, at this time, let's first change it, the schedule for the master plan, Greg. Are we still on schedule for us to get a copy of the draft sometime in the next 5 or 6 days prior to the 28th?
Yeah, we're still aiming for the 21st to get it
Okay.
to you, depending on how the formatting goes, because we're gonna take it from that sort of more basic document and have it match the formatting of the
Okay.
growth
And that will
policy.
include all the comments from public as well as council, or as well as,
Thanks.
planning board.
Yep, we're incorporating all those, but we'll definitely have it to you by the end of next week. at the
Okay, and to that end, Jeff, John, and Chelsea, you'll have it before the meeting,
On the
of urban renewal, so any comments or suggestions that you have, if you could reduce those to, writing, or else call, Greg or I, will make sure that they're included in the discussion. Okay,
Just a quick note too, for Greg, I am working on getting you those photos. I was just waiting for the weather to get nice, so I do have some photos that I'll be sending for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
okay, and then we'll get it on the 28th, and hopefully we can get through that, in one meeting. If we can't, then we'll finish it up on the first meeting in June and try to get it to council by then, but that's the target. Okay, anything else on the master plan?
The format that you'll be sending, will that be a PDF document or a Word document, or?
Most likely a PDF, we can get you a Word, but the formatting might not match exactly.
PDF's okay, if I can just make comments
Yeah.
on the PDF and you guys can read those comments, that works for me.
Okay,
Okay?
that works.
All right, moving on to the final draft of the growth policy. Each of you has received the final draft of the growth policy that was prepared by WWC. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through it. Greg, how do you want to do this? You want to just tell us what you guys did, and if we have any specific questions or comments, we can address those, and then hopefully I'll get a motion to move it to council.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me zoom in a bit for online. So the main thing we did were a few format changes. I tried to point them out in the email. In particular, the entire table of contents is linked, so you can go to the maps in the document, figures, et cetera. And going to the goals, objectives, actions table, we kind of condensed, like each section has 3 tables originally. We kind of smushed all those tables together to simplify it, so that you have one goal, you can see the objectives, and you can see all the actions. We did remove rankings, and that's just historically, if it makes the growth policy document, we feel they're all equally important, otherwise it won't be in there. So it really shortened the document a bit, and we think it's easier to read. I don't know if anyone has objections or edits to the format we could make, but.
Excellent format.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, if everyone's good with that, then I would say go through for the next. We did try to simplify and find new graphics, because one of the major comments was blurriness or difficulty to read, which does bring me to page 26, which Al brought to my attention today, just questions regarding what exactly this table means. And I spent about an hour, 30 minutes today kind of researching. We had replaced a graph that was in there. And I couldn't recreate this data from anywhere. So before the meeting, there were some discussions on how to handle this. I guess we can either guess, which I would probably advise against, just because it could skew the data one way or another. Or we could just remove figure 3 altogether, so you guys could approve it as amended. We remove figure 3, update the other figure numbers, and we just roll without this figure, or we could remove certain columns, rows. I guess it's kinda up to you, but Jeremy and I's recommendation would be to remove it, because it doesn't necessarily make or break the growth policy.
Chelsea, do you have a comment on that?
So I'm
You're
looking
muted.
at it, and I think that I feel like it's detailed below to where, what that graph means or what that chart means. So I don't necessarily think we need to remove it, but at the same time, if it's detailed below, I don't think we have to keep it either. So I could go
So
either.
would you be okay removing that figure completely?
Yep.
Jeff?
So there's a paragraph that talks to it, so we would
Yeah.
remove that paragraph as well.
Or can the paragraph be edited, because
The paragraph says data collected from Montana Department of Commerce.
Showed.
I didn't think we needed to remove the paragraph. I thought we needed to remove the figure only. I think the information in that paragraph has some merit.
They correlate together. The figure just goes into the data, and I guess I should have clarified. Al's big question was, what does the spending mean? Is it per
What is
day
that,
or per?
what is the
per
average
week?
spending? Is that 117 per visit? Is that 117,000? Is it $117? And John pointed out, and I agree, that the 1.8% of out-of-state bill, from the Billings area just doesn't compute.
Seems a little low.
It seems very low. We don't think it's accurate.
And it says, percentage total out-of-state visitors, and then it lists Billings.
Yeah. So is that one
Just
point?
saying, it-
Even if it's out-of-state in Billings, it's not right.
Yeah, well, yeah,
It-
I think that it probably needs to be removed.
Okay, Susan, how about you on removing that figure?
Sounds fine.
John,
Yes.
Marnie,
It can be removed.
Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna remove that. Now, the next question is, the paragraph that starts with data collected from Montana Department of Commerce, does that stay or does that go?
Should stay.
Stay? Jeff?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Chelsea? Susan?
Okay with it.
Okay. All right, did we solve that problem?
Yep, we'll get that updated.
And I would
Yes, sir.
just say, if you guys, in the time coming back, remember, this is gonna go to council, so if you guys come up with an edit that you want to be in there,
No, we're
okay,
gonna,
after it's going on,
we're
say
gonna-
send it as is.
we're gonna approve this as amended, and so the copy that comes back to us and goes to council is not gonna have this figure in it, right, Greg?
Correct.
Okay.
One
I don't-
remark for
But
that.
I'm saying, if you find out after that it has value and you want it back in, there will be an opportunity for you to do that.
And we can communicate that to our council representative.
Bingo, that's what I was trying to say.
Chelsea?
And just one note for Greg, when you do that, make sure that you're gonna have to update all your figure numbers moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that automatic and so it happens?
I believe so, but we'll check.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other issues, Greg?
Not on that. I can keep moving on.
Okay,
We did, and I can't remember her name, but she provided the updated sort of labor and statistics and income.
Yeah, Beth Hutchison.
Beth, yep, thank you. We kind of pieced through that. A lot of that was probably a little too detailed for a growth policy. But we did pull, updated populations, tried to reference the 2022 data and 23 from the census.
what page are you on?
Population.
Kind of general for population characteristics.
And what page is that?
Well, it's
So,
definitely
sort of-
on 27.
27?
It's this whole section we're already in.
Okay.
26 is
Okay,
population.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, and so we did keep the official published data, but we tried to reference that wherever we were already referencing statistic. So we could say, hey, here's published data and here's what was provided from this survey. And then we also updated it a bit to sort of include demographics such as race, ethnicity, percentage men, percentage women.
Mhm.
But then beyond that, for the most part, we kind of omitted a lot of her data just because it was a little,
It was 9 pages.
yeah, it was a little too fine-tuned for what we were trying to introduce for the city. We updated a couple of these graphics in the housing section.
What page is that, John?
Page 31. So it'd be figure 11 here on the right.
Yep.
We just updated it so it would correlate with what we have written in the paragraph. Per Sandy's comment, we updated the rent just based on her discussions with local landlords, which was generally $750 per bedroom per month, depending on, you know, obviously property condition. As far as community housing, based on board's feedback and what the Community Foundation provided, we made very minor edits and didn't include, the very specific sort of pointed directives they had in their recommendations. So those changes were minor in the housing section. Land use, we didn't do a whole bunch of updates. Just basically updating pictures throughout. It's kind of a
I thought the pictures were quite good there.
I thought they were as well.
general comment. Yeah, a lot of it was reformatting from here on out. We did update the hospital section on page 47,
Based on what they sent.
based on what Billings Clinic provided, and then we also, left the highlight in there for the Intermountain Health Clinic that's in town. But obviously theirs isn't quite as detailed, so we wanted to, I guess, check with it portrayed this way. I mean, obviously Billings Clinic put together a nice synopsis of their hospital.
Did Intermountain Health provide something?
They didn't provide anything, so it's just basic data. So just wanted to make sure you were good with
Yeah.
how this section was rewritten.
I was just gonna suggest, you have two pictures of Beartooth Billings Clinic, and in the narrative, it talks about both Beartooth Clinic and Mountain View. I just was wondering if maybe one of those pictures gonna be Mountain View Clinic, rather
Intermountain,
than having two of Beartooth.
I like that.
That's
Sure.
just a suggestion, not anything I would die over.
Sure. Yeah, that should be an easy swap, I guess, if there's someone that could.
Would you make a note and see if you can do it? If you can do it easily, do it. If it delays us, don't.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is if someone on the planning board could send me a picture tomorrow in daylight, 'cause it's probably gonna be a little dark.
Guess I could do that.
Oh, okay.
What page are you on there?
47.
Page 47.
Yeah, okay.
But that'll be an easy swap, if we get that picture in
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So an amendment would be to add a picture of the,
Of Intermountain Health.
Replace one of the
Mountain
pictures,
View.
Okay.
Okay,
and if it's hard to do, leave it.
okay.
Next major change, I guess, would be for the schools,
Yeah.
superintendent, page 50. We added a second paragraph discussing their 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And we kept this pretty high level of what their main objectives and goals were, and reference that document to look at it if you want to get in more detail.
Yeah.
Local services remains similar. Public infrastructure, just a minor edits to date, so it made sense, so we're not referencing, grant funding in 2024, construction projects that will occur in 2024.
That's the only photo that didn't kind of go with public facilities and infrastructure, but I didn't really expect a picture of the sewer pond.
Yeah, that was.
Although
tough.
we could get one for you.
That was a tough one to find a picture of what you typically find of infrastructure outside of, it's a roadway, granted it's an MDT roadway, so.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Okay,
Keep going, we reformatted a few of these graphics and tables to kind of match the rest of the document.
What are you giggling at?
that's stormwater.
Yeah, that's stormwater.
Yeah, and then I guess airport, the minor revisions we made is it was previously referencing an appendix. And so we pulled the reference to an appendix because it didn't get approved, or the master plan got pulled. So we still left the highlights of what the important features from that plan were, but referenced it's a draft document that's available from the city versus including it as an appendix.
How about the map? What did you decide to do? Because the pink area is the P1 zone.
Correct,
It's not the airport outline.
correct.
And does that make it clear in the writing that it is the zone and not the airport outline?
The only thing that points to it is the legend.
Yeah.
So if we think the legend is enough, we can leave it. One thing we did add to our larger maps at the end was we added a note saying that, this is not a zoning map and it's not an official document, so refer to the actual document. So we could add a disclaimer to this page or note, along those same lines, or modify it a bit. We can modify the other one.
It's just the colors of the primary safety overlay and the airport P1A, those colors are so close
That you can't.
together, you can't discern them.
Sure.
Can you fix that?
Yeah, we can update this just using
You
our.
agree?
update.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where that primary airport safety overlay was.
Jeff, are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, I was gonna make that comment, that those two colors needed to be
Yep.
separated.
So that's one of the three, that's our third amendment.
Yep, and we can go through all the amendments at the end, just to make sure we have a complete list too. So,
Okay.
I don't wanna miss anything.
Does everybody agree with that, what we're doing there with that colors?
It looks better on a teeny tiny phone than it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're on the PDF,
Yeah.
the computer, it's different, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Do we wanna add that same note regarding the maps and?
Yes. Okay, moving on.
Okay. Natural cultural resources, not many changes through here till we get down to the riparian area, which is on page, actually, there's a change in floodplain on page 71.
Yeah.
Which was just a rewording, splitting of the sentences. I thought it was worth noting, basically encouraging the city to continue pursuing land acquisition.
And didn't, as we're going through these maps, they're on 8.5 by 11, didn't we also say we're gonna reference, these either by, a link that they can get the larger version of the map? If they go on to a link,
Yeah, so we created an appendix.
and so the larger version of each of these maps can you get through a link, is that right?
Or are they 1117s at the tail end of this?
They're 1117's the tail end, and so if you go to the maps, they're in order.
Yeah,
I see that.
okay.
As I remember Jeremy saying specifically, don't send it to X outside of the document just because it changes.
Yeah. Okay, keep going,
So I'll hop down to the map section
okay.
since we talked about it, but it's an appendix, and they're in the same order as the document, with same call out in the bottom left of map 1,
Yeah.
residential structure conditions. So, I guess it's pretty clear, but if you think we need to add a note somewhere in the document, we can, saying larger maps are available.
Okay, so the appendix 4 is where you're gonna list the maps, and that's where they link them?
It's just linked down to the appendix. The maps themselves in the table of contents
Yeah.
are linked to the figures within the document. So you can see the text that goes with it.
Okay,
There's not a way to link both unless we list them all twice,
okay.
which we could do if you want them listed.
Just to be clear, I know some people are gonna want, including me, the larger versions of the map, if they wanna refer to it, the larger scale.
Yeah, so in the table of contents, what we could do here,
Yeah,
under appendix 4, we could list them as subsets, and then we could give those links to the larger maps.
can we do that? So that's gonna be an amendment in the table of contents on maps, right? Is that right?
Yes. Under appendix 4 maps, we'll do subset, the link to the larger.
Okay. Okay?
I think from there, we didn't
I think
have
it's all,
any,
I think that's,
I don't think we had any major changes.
so right now I have four amendments. You're gonna amend the visitor chart, what is it, figure 3?
Yep,
We're gonna add a picture of Mountain View, or the,
Yep.
under
Intermountain.
Intermountain under hospitals. The third amendment is the contrasting colors on the airport map.
yep,
And the fourth amendment is the table of contents, you're gonna link to the larger scale maps.
Yes.
Are those the only 4 you got?
yes.
Okay. Let me go around the table. Chelsea, is there anything that you wanna point out in specific that we haven't covered?
The only thing I would add to those amendments is not just discerning the colors on the map, the airport map, but also providing that disclosure.
Disclosure?
Yeah,
Yeah,
disclosure
we-
saying it's an unofficial map,
Oh,
but just didn't want to include that in the verbiage of the amendment. Otherwise, everything looks really good.
okay. Jeff?
The only thing I had was on page 8, where he lists 1995 master plan. You should probably say 1995 Red Lodge master plan.
Okay, that's the fifth amendment?
Yep.
Is that it? Susan?
That's fine.
John?
I'm good.
Marnie?
I'm good.
Sandy?
I had a question on page 83. You have stuff that I guess needs some research under growth policy adoption. So we're gonna have to, it says the city council then held a public hearing. So can we fake some dates in there? I just don't want it to go through that way. We need to make sure that that's, added in at the
Oh,
end.
where you have,
Where
vote of X to X and.
the city
and where-
council held public hearing on, yeah.
So that has to be after the council meeting.
Yeah, so we can infill the first one after you guys vote, so the one we could send it. You can ask us to amend it with your vote included, but the city council one,
So 5 or 6.
So the city council will want to make sure that they include an amendment to update the later date?
yeah,
To include the date in there.
yeah, so that'll be their final.
Do they, yeah, because council could amend all of that when it comes to council. And they're all past tense.
Yeah, but those dates don't go until council does their work.
Till we're finished,
Yeah.
and then it goes on their schedule.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve as amended to send to council.
I would move to send the growth policy as amended to city council.
And seconded by
Second.
John. Any discussion? Any discussion? It's only
You
taken
put down the hammer.
14 months. Can I
But
have
who's
a,
counting?
can I have a vote, please?
Gray,
Yes.
Tupin,
Yes.
Eccles Bell,
Yes.
Moisey,
Yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Bloomer.
Yes. I gotta tell you, folks, that's a job well done. It was a difficult job, and thank you to WWC and you members of the planning board for your diligence and input, and frankly, I'm pretty proud of that document.
I was gonna say just that.
And I would say this, that I'm happy that we'll have 3 council representatives that were part of this process, and hopefully that will help the council get through this. But if I need to be there, will somebody tell me?
Yeah, we will.
You should plan on being there.
Okay,
And I was actually gonna see, so our next council meeting would be the 27th. And I was gonna put this on our land use and planning agenda. I don't know if Al, if you wanna come to that meeting, it's at 10 a.m. Or if you would rather just come for discussion that evening at the council meeting, or anyone.
as needed. If you think I'm a asset to the meeting, I will be happy to be there.
Point of order.
Yeah,
So what Chelsea's talking about is putting that on the standing committee meeting.
yeah.
So does this need to go to a public notice before council what's next, time frame and limitations?
Council has to hold their own public hearing for public comment.
And it has to be noticed.
You have 15-day notice.
Do we have to go to, does council initiate that 15-day notice?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a concern or problem, if I'm reading between the lines here, is there a concern, Councilmember Tupin, with having this be for action at that final meeting in May? Or are you still saying you want to run it through the standing committee first and then do a bump cycle to hit it? Do you want it to show up below the fold once before it comes? Or we've been telling people it's coming?
You want my opinion?
We've been doing a pretty good job of telling people it's coming. So maybe we announce the public hearing at our next meeting. And then the following but we need 15 days, not 14.
So what happens is, we pass a resolution of intent. Because council has to take an action that initiates that public notice. And my question is there a way we can do that you're comfortable with at the next meeting? Because I know that's out.
I think we do it at the next meeting. Again, there's been a lot of conversation about this for the past few months. We've made it very well known that this is coming. So specifically for council purposes, I think that we could have a resolution of intent that could be above the fold for the following.
Whatever the council action is, will you get it to us?
Yeah.
And we'll put it on the next council meeting.
And we need to get a copy of the amended document to the planning board members as soon as possible, so that we have the same document that goes to council.
Chelsea, when is that due by to get it to the
The
committee?
Thursday before so if, I can give you the exact date. Even though my name's not Chelsea, sorry.
That's okay. It'd be Thursday, the 22nd.
23rd?
Thursday the 22nd.
End
Thursday
of
the
business day.
Okay.
Thursday, the 22nd, at what time?
End of business day, so 5 o'clock, but that's when we'll
Wow.
need that amended version to be able to go into the packet.
And from a timing standpoint, council meeting's on Tuesday, so it'll need to run the next week as the paper that it'll run in.
So land use is at 5 PM?
No.
What?
Land use is on the 27th
27th.
at 10 a.m. If in
So we-
fact, we need to, I mean, 2/3 of the standing committee is Chelsea and
I think you just come to the council meeting that night is all.
I
Which
think
night?
That's what I
too.
was gonna recommend, Al, is I don't think you need to come to the
The
land use
26th.
and planning meeting. We've already done a good job. Cinta's already been through it. She actually provided feedback already. So I think that you don't need to come to the land use and planning meeting, but I think it would be
Right.
beneficial to have you or Greg or both at that council meeting on the 27th at 6 PM.
It'll probably be me and Jeff
Yeah.
and hopefully Greg.
Beautiful.
So will that be above the fold?
That'll be above the fold.
Okay,
That's key for action.
I may show it to it.
okay. So when do you think we can get an amended copy to the board members, planning board members?
I think
Sometime.
I'll have her start making the edits
Sometime.
tomorrow. I think the bumping down pages is gonna take the longest.
And
Double checking.
will
that.
you send it to everybody or will you send it to me and I send it to everybody?
I can do either, whatever.
You send it.
prefer. Send it to everybody?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I think early next week, we should
okay.
be able to have it amended.
As long as we
Okay.
have it by Thursday, so that it can go in the
Thursday.
packet to the city council members.
Yeah, that'll be our first goal, and then we'll move to formatting the master plan.
Okay. Again, it's 14 months,
And you were Burnett when we started this.
huh?
And you were a brunette.
Oh, and did you have this?
No, that's new.
No, I was losing hair elsewhere, so I had to go somewhere else, so.
Are you gonna go with the full beard next?
No. In fact, this one's day to day now, depends on what mood my wife is in.
Whatever
Okay,
Carol
moving
said.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Can we just clarify the timeline? So what I heard was the next council meeting will be a resolution to hold the public meeting or public hearing at the next council meeting? Is that? I'm trying
No, because what'll happen is, that'll be the resolution to proceed, which means there will be an ad that goes in the paper. The date that would go in the paper would actually be June 5th, and then that's 15 days from there.
Yes.
So it'd make it to the paper on June 5th, which means that, and it has to be how many, so then, it's two, so then the second, so that means it would be the 24th of June that council would have their public hearing. Is that correct? Does that sound,
And can you approve it that night?
I believe we can do with action and approve at the same time, yeah.
We
Yep.
can, yeah.
Okay, and if we go like I hope we will, we'll have the master plan done by then, that's from our point of view.
Coming in right behind.
Mhm.
You said June 24th?
June 24th, I believe, is the second Tuesday. And that's basically working the way just from the day it hits the
June
paper.
tenth
to
is
the
the
5th.
second Tuesday, June 24th is the fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, and it would go in the paper on the 5th, which means that can't be done by the
15
10th, and
days.
it could be done by the 24th.
The 15-day thing.
Okay. And we need to get once you send the amended draft to the planning board, we need to get it on the webpage.
Yes, yeah. You're gonna copy me on that,
Yeah.
and we'll get it on the webpage at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, I wanna confirm. So we're gonna get an amended draft by end of day on May 22nd. It's going to be on the city council agenda on May 27th, above the fold, for discussion
No, for action.
on the 27th,
We have to take an action to get it into the paper.
like
It
a
will be
resolution.
resolution of intent for the public hearing. So essentially
Okay.
saying,
I'm deferring to Greg on what our council action is to do that.
Okay,
Hey, you guys figure that out.
and so
yes.
then it goes in the paper June 5th, and the public hearing would be June 24th.
Correct.
Okay,
And Chelsea, Sandy, and
And
David.
then Al has a hangover party scheduled for the 25th.
Yeah, well, I'm counting on Chelsea, Sandy, and you, David, to make sure the council understands the depth that this board went into to prepare this document.
Okay,
and the detail.
okay.
I think it's
Any
concurrent.
document can be nitpicked. I hope
Okay.
this one's not.
Okay. You use my in trouble name, okay, is the only answer you're getting.
Okay.
He keeps looking at you.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on, staff communication and updates.
I think the only thing I had was just seeing if there's updated pictures for the master plan, but Chelsea answered that earlier, so.
Okay, but we have some conditional uses that are moving around out there. We have one that's down here on, was it Eighth and Hagen? The high school, affordable housing development.
Yeah, I don't know if we've seen that one. We've got one that's,
Brian mentioned it might be coming, has some setback issues.
oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a private development, it may, yeah, so it's not necessarily targeted at any specific,
But it's gonna require conditional use, right?
yes, that's the one, we're talking about the same one, you just,
Oh,
you
okay.
confused it when you threw in school.
And then the Spires is gonna require conditional use?
Spires is subdivision, so they'll have to do, they're a ways out from coming to the planning board.
Okay, and we could expect those probably in June?
We don't know when Spires is gonna come back,
Okay,
but they're probably,
It won't be in June because of the deadline, of the counters that are in it.
yeah, they're at least 30 to 60 working days before
okay, so July, all right.
July.
So we need to get this done before that. Okay, that's why I'm bringing it up. Because neither one of those are gonna be easy.
I agree.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Petitions from the audience? Dave, anything?
Oh, we lost our one.
I have a hypothetical question to ask this board. Ooh, kick me if I get wrong here. The way our zoning currently reads, it dictates some setbacks that I believe are counter what the intent of this board intended and currently wants.
You really want to get into this discussion?
I just want to rate it at a very high level. So, because there's a couple of different approaches to it. One is we force a development to go not the way we really want it, or the two is, do we have a conversation up front that says, do we want to consider a zoning amendment in advance of the other zoning amendments because of the impact of it?
That's the one that I referenced down there, and I think that's gonna be a pretty serious discussion among the board.
So I'm asking what is the intent of this board, because my understanding is we have not found a way as of yet, correct me if I'm wrong, we have not found a way as of yet that the planning board can dictate what they'd like it to be outside of the current zoning.
You may have answered your own question.
So the question is, do you want it to go through in your second choice, or do you want to do an amendment, or do you want to consider changing it up front to do that?
And I don't
we'll
know,
build
because
agendas accordingly.
speaking for me, and hopefully the board, until we have all the details from the developer, can see it, and look, touch it, and feel it, it's hard to say. I can tell you that this planning board is very cognizant of the current zoning, and we're cognizant of the issues that we have, that we might have to make a change in the future, and you're asking, do we wanna sidetrack that, saying, okay, we're gonna change it later, but we're,
No, we can't say we're gonna do it this way, knowing we'd have to change it later. It's
No.
either gonna go the way that we're all gonna grumble about,
yeah.
or we change it ahead.
In other words, make an exception.
Make an out-of-cycle amendment to it.
Make an exception.
Are we just opposed to that idea universally?
And the question is always in, and that's the way, we got affordable housing project, you got a detail here, you know, how does it work? And I think that's gonna be a pretty serious discussion around the table.
And I think we need to look at it.
To my understanding, the conditional cannot override what our zoning dictates. And just to give a very, very high level, our zoning says the shortest edge will be the frontage, and therefore define all of the other setbacks. It does not take, it assumes in that language that lots are of a particular size or at least a particular ratio. So if you have 3 lots combined into 1 lot, you are now forcing the
On different
frontage
streets.
to be on an alley rather than a
On
main
different
street.
streets.
Our
Which
zoning,
means it's gonna stick out farther than stuff on one, it's gonna mismatch in 2 different directions.
does our zoning say that the short edge is the front?
It does. I'm not saying it's stupid, I'm saying that's what it says, and that's the rule.
Okay.
What do you do when it's square?
To answer your question, from my perspective, it needs to come before this board, and we need to sit down there and make a decision, and then I suppose we're gonna have to have some legal input from our, planner and from our lawyer as to what we can and can't do.
That's what I was looking for.
We'll do the best we can.
Can somebody give me it doesn't have to be right now, but a little bit more of a briefing on what you're talking about?
Yeah,
That, I think what I said is as much as I can actually give. I'm happy to stay at school.
Basically,
You know.
maybe go around.
Wow, maybe you have it in blonde.
As I understand it, this is on a corner,
Okay,
and based on our zoning, the setback on one street is X, and the setback on the other street is Y.
okay.
And it kinda doesn't make sense.
Alright.
And our zoning wording makes it backwards from what logically makes sense.
Okay. Gotcha, I'm okay,
So there's a common sense solution and there's a legal solution.
okay, okay.
Okay? Anything else?
That's all I have, sir, thank you.
Huh?
That's all I have.
It's gotta be against the rules to only be here an hour.
Oh, no.
There's a game on.
Okay. Oh.
Hearing, no other business?
I moved to
Chelsea, you
adjourn.
good? No? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Al.
Oh, thank you.
Get out of his way so he can get to his car.